Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest Chapter 189 is officially out, and this was a really fun chapter. Now, not a whole bunch happened in terms of revelations and fight sequences and matchups, but this was more so a let's just double check what's going on with the entirety of the fights in this arc, catching up on where everybody is at, and just basically re-establishing a lot of stuff. So we're probably going to breeze through this chapter, but I do have some thoughts leading into certain aspects of this chapter. But before we jump into things, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Also, thanks a whole bunch for 30,000 subscribers. We met another big milestone today. Who knows, maybe we'll hit 50k by the end of the year if we are lucky. But either way, I'm really happy that you guys have been enjoying the content and have been subscribing, as 30k is still something I didn't imagine would happen, and it keeps me more motivated to keep making these videos for you guys. Also, yes, I have been slowing down on the weekly Fairy Tail videos. For now, I'm just going to focus on the chapter reviews, and I'm going to try and build up some Fairy Tail discussion, theory, and explanation videos for much later down the road, maybe after the entirety of the summer is over, going into the fall, because I do want to at least have a backlog of videos so I don't scramble for video ideas right after chapters, so that way I don't make anything too hasty. So, thank you for the patience. I will keep making videos, don't worry. For now, strictly chapter reviews for the time being. But with that out of the way, let's just jump right into Chapter 189 of 100 Years Quest. Chapter 189 of 100 Years Quest, titled Dragon's Banquet. Cover image is any previous state and now Dragonified. Not much of a difference, not crazy about it. I just think it's kind of mid. Not gonna lie, it's not good in my opinion. Not much of a difference, but it is what it is. We continue from the last chapter where Juvia basically overflowed the gate, more or less, if that counts as a pun. But as gate is just overflowing with water, he then pops and turns back into a book that begins to disintegrate, with Merity wondering what's going on, but Juvia is more concerned about where Gray is. And we use that as a transition to the rest of Team Fairy Tail as they're facing off against Fire and Flame, with seemingly that Gray managed to block an attack from the Fire and Flame members, as Annie ends up saying that they should probably finish the fight, with Luso agreeing that they should probably keep going and get serious. But then a crack appears in the sky as space is broken, as Ferris busts out of Bestia's whole other dimension that she created while they were fighting, as she lands on the ground, Acnologia Gauntlet slamming into the ground in that singular instance in a really awesome page. As the two of them seem completely fine. Bestia is kind of holding on to Ferris, but still, even with that, yeah, the fight didn't seem to have dealt any damage to them in the fair moment. But this seems to be a catch-up that, yeah, these two are still fighting, but they haven't done anything to each other just yet. And it's then that the rest of Team Fairy Tail realize, okay, there's another Ferris with dark magic, looks identical to the Ferris that they know. And then Happy reminds Natsu of what Miss Fortune ended up saying about Bestia's flames, that they could give him access to his true power, as Natsu just immediately thinks, oh yeah, I'm getting me some food in this instance. Now, Wendy and Erza and Carla end up reacting to Bestia and Ferris's magic power, with Carla saying that they're special. Now, we knew about Ferris and everything with Acnologia and black magic and all that stuff. Something about Bestia definitely ends up hitting my interest there. Now, this definitely makes me think that Mashima is going to elaborate more on Bestia's fire and later on Ferris's abilities and actually see them in action to an extent. But for now, Wed ends up saying that 100% Bestia is the actual leader of Fire and Flame. While they are under Ignia, the actual leader of the guild and their basic fighting force is Bestia right now. So, okay, we got that confirmation. Now, Bestia is still holding on to Ferris and is using her flames to propel herself and Ferris, as she wants to leave this fight to her, with Ferris just smiling, saying that she's pretty interesting, as Bestia just puts them back in another pocket dimension to keep fighting, as Natsu is just like, wait, hold on, what about my food? But as he's distracted, Wed pulls up behind him and seemingly cuts Natsu in half, bisecting him, as Lucy begins to react to this. But in the next page, Natsu, with a cocky smirk, is just being like, oh, I left my guard down? So what? As his base body heat was hot enough to just melt right through Wed's sword, cutting it clean in half. And obviously this isn't the first time we've seen Natsu just melt any type of metal. And Natsu's just like, okay, I've had enough of this. While Erza kind of smirks with pride, and Wed is just like utterly kerfuffled right now. Now, here's the thing. We all know that before Alvarez, during that time skip, Natsu was basically able to melt an entire mountain range and a whole bunch. His heat is just insane. with that. But that also shows that Wed's sword probably wasn't the strongest sword imaginable, but it was still able to take a lot. So Natsu can melt even high-grade metal like Wed's blade. So that's another thing to put into Natsu's entire kit. Swords aren't going to do much into Natsu if he can just melt their metal, so it seems like the sword had no magical properties whatsoever, seemingly. But either way, still very impressive. But as Natsu just has enough of this, he just says he'll blow everyone away and just bursts a massive just shockwave of heat, blowing Wed back, while also melting and burning away the clothing of everybody in the area. Lucy, Wendy, and I guess Gray, and the Signario sisters. Honestly, Gray's like, wait, what happened to my clothes? With Wendy just saying, you were kind of almost naked at the start of this fight anyway. Which, this bit got me rolling, but at the same time, kind of concerning that this entire, not only like Gray's whole stripping habit is just legitimately a normal thing, especially for Wendy now, but like everything that's happened in this instance, she just has a blank expression right now. And that is kind of concerning for her own mental health at this point. This shit happens way too often for her to actually deal with, and now it just registers as normal, especially with Natsu and Gray around. So, yeah, that's something, I guess. Also, I like how Lekka just instantly recognizes that Natsu fully using his flames like this shows that his flames are definitely different from theirs. Also, Erza's not phased by anything right now, but maybe, I think her armor right now is just resistant to flames at this instance, so she's probably fine. And also, the only real fan service in this instance is just Lucy and the Signario sisters in this instance, but it's like quick and not super lingered on. Thankfully, it's not really a thing with Wendy, unless you're someone that hyper fixates on even the smallest thing, but either way, this is just like a quick gag to kind of soften the mood, seemingly. But Natsu now is really fired up, as he's basically just being incredibly cocky and kind of talking down to them, saying some dragons you turned yourselves into. This pisses off the group, but Natsu then unleashes a massive roar at all of Fire and Flame, knocking them and pushing them back, as he just proudly proclaims, this is the power of a dragon. Which kind of implies this entire time Natsu wasn't even taking the fight fully seriously. Which kind of tracks based off of his fight with Brian many chapters ago at this point, considering that he wasn't doing much to Brian until he actually started using Dragon Slayer magic. And based off of this, it seems like now he's truly starting to use his dragon magic. So, yeah. Though I really, really hope that everybody just gets singular fights, because this could be a bad sign in terms of Natsu fully stealing the show. Because I really, really want each member of the main group to take on each of their opponents one-on-one, maybe have the fights coincide and have them each do good teamwork in order to beat their opponents and catch them off guard and trip them up. This instance could also mean that Masha's like, maybe I'm making this fight drag out too much. Maybe I'll just have Natsu just wipe them out so the rest of the main group can have enough firepower or whatever to take on other threats. But I'm like, I don't think that's where it's going to go. But it's also a sign that some people will think of if Natsu's able to, with a singular breath, push the antagonist group away. Now, if let's say Loxus or someone else from Veritos shows up, allowing Natsu to go after and find Bestia and Ferris so we can consume that fire, then I would think that would be a good decision, or have this fight end with Bestia coming out. But still, there's a couple of things that this could end up turning into, and I could just be catastrophizing the worst case scenario for the writing for this group fight, and it just being Natsu literally stealing the show at the end. I don't think that's where it's going to happen or where it's going to lead, but the possibility is out there, especially if Mashima gets bored with this, which I really hope he doesn't, but that's just me. I have to address that concern. But either way, I just hope that we stick to the one-on-one fights. But now we go back to Aldoron, as Selene is staring him right in the face in his outer body, but is wondering where his true form is, as she flies into his mouth to look for his core. It's then that a bunch of tree trunks and vines ensnare her and hold her tight. She then tries to escape by turning back into her human form, but the trunks encapsulate her again, as she is then brought face to face with Aldoron's true form, the King's Core. So, no new design, but either way, this is still a really cool-ass form for Aldoron, so I'm glad to see it again, as Selene and Aldoron are face to face for the first time in 400 years. Aldoron, being the cocky bastard that he is, says that someone's been making a racket above his body and is wondering if that was Selene. He launches a bunch of death needles at her, but she just casually, with just a blank expression, being like, "Are you serious right now, man?" opens up her Aqua Aria, I think it's called, teleportation gate to just teleport her outside of the grasp of his trap, and then just casually pops up right behind him and just says, "Are those really the words you want to tell me after 400 years of not seeing me, you withered tree dragon?" As she then tries to dropkick him similar to what she did to Viernus. He blocks it, but then she ends up launching a force of power at Aldoron, and he does the same. As we get another clash of dragon gods, with a massive shockwave pushing the two of them back. As we are now getting geared up for another dragon god versus dragon god fight, with Selene telling Aldoron that this is the final evening of the 400-year banquet. Now, thankfully, unlike with Viernus, no dragon slayers or characters like Grey or any of the main cast are in the vicinity. Yeah, we have Team B, but they're busy dealing with Ferris's demons above Aldoron. So right now, in this instance, we might actually get a real, true dragon god fight at full strength with both of them right now. And this will actually show us Aldoron's full power as well, since he was still relatively weak when Natsu and the others beat him. But either way, this is hype. As long as nobody interrupts this fight, we can get a multi-chapter stretched out fight between two of the strongest characters in the series, and I really, really, really want this to be the case. Right now, no one else is in the area, like with Grey and Wendy, to interrupt this fight, so I'm hopeful for a clear one-on-one right now with no outside interruptions. But as that fight is now beginning in the core of Aldoron, back up top, Gagiel stares down against Zero. With Zero, like I figured, recognizing Gagiel as a member of Phantom Lord and essentially Jose's right-hand man, and is confused why he's in Fairy Tail now. With Gagiel basically just throwing in Jose as just someone that just wasn't his style, and he just didn't like him all that much. Which is putting it mildly, Jose was a literal scumbag in every sense of the word, and also a dick. So, yeah, you don't have to just sugarcoat a Gagiel, you can say what you really think about him anyway. But Zero just says that Gagiel has strong resentment to his father. What kind of attitude is that? You're just like my kids, the Irration Seis, which shows that Zero kind of, even though, because yeah, he took the Seis in as kids, so he did kind of treat them as parents. Shows that despite how twisted he is, Zero/Brain still saw the Seis as his quote-unquote kids, but not in the parental manner or whatever. But right as Zero was beginning to charge and attack at Gagiel, Gagiel is quick enough on the draw to hit Zero right in the chest with an Iron Dragon club. As Gagiel, with a great smirk, says, "There's only one guy I think of as a dad, Master Makarov." As that ends the chapter, as the fight between Zero and Gagiel officially begins. Now, overall, this chapter, not too much happened, just establishments for fights, and just a quick catch up on Team Natsu, and Ferris's whole deal with the fight against Bestia, and not much else. Also confirmation that Gay was defeated, wish that fight went on a bit longer. Way he got taken out makes sense, but I still don't like how short it was, but either way it is what it is at this point. But now we got a Dragon God versus Dragon God fight with, at this moment, no outside interference from people that could legitimately do anything against these two characters right now, so I have high hopes for that. Gagiel's fighting Zero. I do hope Midnight shows back up to finish things off, but either way, that was really cool. Fire and Flame fight, still going on. Natsu taking this seriously now and getting actually fired up, so I'm looking forward to that, as long as Natsu doesn't literally steal the show in that fight, but I have faith Majima isn't going to do that. I don't think he's really done that in Fairy Tail, at all, to a degree that I'm being afraid of. But yeah, that was a chapter. I liked it. It was fun, nice catch-up. So we got re-establishments for everything, and setups for actual fights actually beginning. So we'll either catch up with Gagiel and Zero, Aldoron and Selene, or we'll catch up with Elfman and Mira's fights. I hope it's those two. I want to see them fight, I want to see their growth, and have an actual good fight in this series. Also, it is kind of sweet how Gagiel thinks of Makarov as his father figure, as his father. Kind of throwing shade at Metallicana for actually raising him as his dad, but I guess a present father at this point, it would be Makarov, especially with all the years he spent at Fairy Tail, which is sweet and shows his growth and how he views Fairy Tail as his legitimate family. I just wish it was there are only two people I consider my father, Makarov and Metallicana, the two people that raised him over the course of his life. But either way, nice line of dialogue, shows Gagiel's full circle growth. I'm happy with it. But what do you guys think of this chapter? How do you think things are going to pan out for these fights? Do you think we'll get more chapters focusing on the Fire and Flame fight, or are we going to cut back to Mira and Elfman before we get back to these larger scale fights? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel, and shows you want to see more. Now with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.